two sisters to be in a play, and I can't remember that play.
Hacienda.
Yeah, and of course, wow, my sister is in on stage, unbelievable. Which my oldest sister is, you can't make her do something like that. But she did, and she was there, and she was acting, and my other sister was also acting, and I can't believe that. Through Mima, they went out of their shell and be on stage, and people are seeing them, and they have a lot of applause when I'm one of them from the audience. And Mima being creative, and I agree with Grace that we have those pillows also. We have something for Christmas. Mima always makes something for Christmas as presents. And Mima comes to the house and likes the outside, I think. But at the end of her life, because she could so appreciate that, she prefers to be inside. But she likes to party.
Yeah, definitely.
She likes to party. I will miss you, Mima, and salute you for being still with it at her age. Yeah, she has her wits at the end, even at the end of her life.
Oh no.
Uh-oh, they did something
It's
there.
a signal.
Okay.
Mima heard.
Yeah. I said, okay, the kids is there.
Bob, you want to say something?
I got two short stories about Mima. The first one would just be the normal day for Mima when I used to visit her and or see Reme. She would be filling out these forms to send for sweepstakes. What was that?
No, it's these.
Like you could already be a winner.
Yeah, this fake.
She fills that out,
yeah.
and then once in a while I'd be there, and some little gifts would come because you have to order something and all that. So she just did that religiously.
Yeah.
She never missed anything. She never worried about whether she won something or not. It was just part of her routine to fill those out, mail those out. So this is just, like everyday Mima. And I was involved with Mima and Reme with several productions. But for some reason, I never talked about production with Mima. We never talked about the play or the theme or any detail. Blocking, we never talked about things like that. She was always the behind the scenes kind of person. And I know why she's so successful in organizing and mobilizing people, because she doesn't ask. Because Lena would be putting down the phone at home, my wife, and she'd say, "You know why Mima is so effective? She just gives you assignments. She doesn't. No, it's not on the table. It's like, Lena, you're gonna be here on Tuesday, and you're gonna bring pancit, and you're gonna be in charge of the catering." And then she hangs up because she's gotta call other people to go to the next one. So that for me captures the character of Mima, which kind of goes along with the positive creative, because she never considered things not happening the way she saw it. And good for her that she always had these creative ideas, and she always went for it. Like even before the script was done, she is already calling people to do all the things, like everything was already in place. So in my mind, that's Mima. And for all we know, wherever she is, she's probably running that place right now.
Telling people what to do, right?
Saul, do you have any memories of Mima?
Not so much because I was here only for a short time.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, I meet Mima. She's already almost not active. She's already on bed.
Yeah.
So I remember is I go to your place. I'll bring Lani and we do the manicure
Yes.
and pedicure and do her hair.
Yes.
Yes. Because she always want red colors on her nails. Yeah. That's it. So maybe.
Okay, let me round it out. Mima always considered the Shea family her family, especially Mary's son Stephen, whom she was very proud of because when he was very young, he was already playing the violin, and as he grew older, he became more of an artist at violin, and he played mostly Philippine music. It delighted her to no end. Whenever he left, because he would play for her, whenever he left, he would say, you know, you should do it just a little bit more this, or just a little bit more that. You know, her critique, her critique mind was always in function. When I say that Alfred is my street son, it's because Mima adopted him. She was very lonely at home at that time. She was in her late 80s, and I was working full time at the law firm. And anyone who visited her, she considered, you're going to be here tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And luckily, Alfred was between homes, so it was very easy to invite him and say, you want to stay overnight? You want to stay here? So he was the official babysitter of Mima. And it was he who started Mima on the track of really taking scripts seriously, because he's a historian at heart, and he had all these Philippine timelines and heroes and events of history. And of course, Mima loved that. She wasn't in her 80s and 90s without participating in her country's history. For your benefit, Maggie, Mima was taught by a Thomasite, and a Thomasite are those teachers that were sent on the SS Thomas to educate the Filipinos, because they couldn't pacify the country with guns and violence. They decided to send educational people. The soldiers were starting to the American soldiers in the United States in the Philippines were already starting to educate the children, in little groups, and they found that very helpful because the community responded. So what the United States decided was, let's send a boat full of them. And so Mima was taught by a Thomasite, and when that Thomasite left the village to go to another village, she assigned my mother, who was about 14, 15, and said, you're in charge now, you teach. So part of the time she claims, part of the time she did is discipline them. No, you don't say F and P together. You say F and you say P, you know. So she was doing that sort of thing. So she was a Thomasite left over, so to speak. Mima taught in grade school, and then she decided to, when my father married her, you will see in the inscription, even her bones are laughing. That's because my mother talked to his best friend. My father was in UP in Manila, which was like being in New York City, and she lived in Iowa or Idaho or somewhere that was totally a province. And so she was always worried that my father would marry somebody more sophisticated than her. And so she turned to my father's best friend and said, I don't know, I don't think he's going to come back and marry me. And he said, oh, no. You'll be there when he's ready to get married. Why do you say that? Because, you know, he told me something, and I hope you keep this as a secret. He said, no matter what, whenever he saw my mother, her name was then Medine, whenever he saw Medine, he just felt that even her bones were laughing. He was always joyful with her. And it's true, she had a habit of being very ebullient, very spontaneous, you know. You seldom found her depressed. The only time I knew when my mother was depressed, when the bills were getting to her, is that when we were on a bus ride, she would be humming. And I knew something was bothering her because she was humming. I also had the experience of watching Mima manipulate bill collectors on the phone. They would call her, and she would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you know, but I have a lot of bills to pay, and yours is coming up, and I will be paying for that soon." Then I would hear her identify herself on the phone when she gets the bill collector company, and the way she spelled her name was a riot, you know. I mean, her name is so long, Kabakunan, right? to go, it's almost automatic. C as in Charlie, A. B as in boy, A. C. And when I heard that, I would leave the room. Oh, this is a bill collector for sure.
I don't know. Mima has in trouble with bills.
Yeah, you know, I've had troubles with bills, but I remembered the way Mima handled it. You know, whether she postponed them or delayed them or what, she handled it. She called them directly. I never had the guts to even call them directly. So I took that from her. The most wonderful thing about Mima is her sense of humor. We had, when she was already in her 90s, 95, we had a signal wherein early in the morning, if I left on time, okay, if I stayed at home until 9 o'clock, because I didn't have to be in until 9:30, this is with the library, she would say to me, did they fire you already? And then she would cackle like, I have one over you, you know. But when I leave the house, before I close the door, I would look at her. She would be having her breakfast, and I'd say, goodbye, and she'd say, bye, and I'd say, don't do anything until I come home. Wait for me. And she knew that was the message. Don't die before I come home. You know? So that was our routine in the morning. Uh, I am so, I can't say delighted, but I'm so contented and pleased that Mima died in my arms, that I was able to watch her not deteriorate as though she was in a project. She was always asleep, and she seemed very busy. When you tried to change her or change her position, she would say, don't bother me, I haven't slept all night, and I had to sleep a little. She was asleep all day. So it felt as though she was in a project, like a production, like sewing pillows, like decorating stuff. And so don't disturb her. So it never felt as though she was in pain, and she wasn't. And so I'm pleased about that. And so when she died in my arms at a few minutes before midnight on December 20th, I was able to talk to her, and I even said to her, everything's all right, Mima. I know you have to keep an appointment, and I don't think you should worry. I think anytime you feel like going, you should go. But I was able to apologize to her. You know, I was able to say, I'm sorry for my badness. And by the way, Mima, I forgive you for my childhood. And so when I said it's time, anytime you want to go, in less than 5 minutes, she stopped breathing. So she was in my arms all that time. I had a mixed childhood with Mima. I was constantly in boarding schools. She was not a mother. She was my best friend. She didn't act like a mother. She never talked down to me. It was always, you know, you're an individual, and she talks to you that way. So my memory of her is not the nurturing mother who waits for you after school. No, she was my best friend. She would call me up and say, I need a speech, and I need it yesterday. And she knew that I knew her mind, and she knew I knew what she was doing, that I could invent things and put it in a 5-minute speech. And sure enough, I'd fax it to her, and she'd have her speech. And there were times in my life, frequently, I would call her up and say, I can't pay my phone bill. And she doesn't say why, what happened, or she just says, how much do you need? Where will I send it? And that was it. If I asked my brother the same thing, my brother would say, you know, you really have to be more responsible. You know? He'd give me a story like 4 or 5 paragraphs, and then he'd say, okay, I'll lend it to you. Not my mother. My mother always said, how much do you need? And I thought, that was so delightful, you know, that she could be so close to maybe the times that she was needing money, so that she was so easy about people could ask her money for any time. So I remember her in the fun ways, and I miss her because I feel as though I've released her to be the person that she is. And we don't know what's after life. It may be beginning a new life. It may be starting things that you didn't finish. And she finished with me. You know, she completed her relationship with me. So now she's on her own. And I hope that her next life will be as wonderful, as exciting as it was in this life. So I miss her, but I willingly let her go. And I cry all the time. That's fine. I cry all the time. So, if you want to sit down, we will say a small prayer for Mima. And I will lead it, and then you can